I really have nothing to add, and if I did, I would find a really cool way to not say it, but I actually have nothing to add.
For nearly 20 years, Hugh Jackman wasn't just playing Wolverine, he was Wolverine. He transformed his body, sacrificed his health, and built a legacy that became one of the most iconic in cinematic history. Fans thought his story ended perfectly with Logan, but years later, Jackman shocked the world by coming out of retirement for one last run, the ultimate Wolverine and Deadpool team-up. It was supposed to be a celebration, a thank you to the fans, a chance to go out on his own terms. But behind Disney's closed doors, something else was brewing, a secret X-Men reboot plan that, according to multiple insiders, blindsided Jackman completely. This wasn't just a creative change, it was a calculated corporate move, one that stripped away 2 decades of loyalty in the name of cold, hard cost-cutting. And here's the thing. This wasn't an isolated betrayal. What happened to Hugh Jackman is part of a much bigger story. One that's shaking the entire Marvel universe from the inside out and putting some of the studio's biggest stars on the brink of walking away for good. When Disney bought 20th Century Fox back in 2019, fans knew it was only a matter of time before the X-Men finally joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was the kind of merger that could reshape superhero movies for an entire generation. The official story was all about possibilities, new characters, new crossovers, and a seamless integration into the MCU's sprawling timeline. But behind that polished PR, the reality was far more calculated. According to insiders, Marvel's top brass began quietly mapping out a complete X-Men reset to launch after Avengers: Secret Wars in 2027. On paper, it sounded like a creative refresh, a chance to reintroduce the mutants in a way that fit Marvel's interconnected universe. But the deeper you dig, the clearer the real motive becomes. This wasn't just about storytelling, it was about cutting costs. Disney, already in the middle of a massive corporate belt-tightening campaign, saw the X-Men reboot as the perfect opportunity to slash some of its most expensive contracts. Longtime stars like Hugh Jackman, whose paychecks run into the tens of millions, were suddenly seen not as irreplaceable icons, but as liabilities. And the timing couldn't have been more suspicious. While executives were publicly promising fresh innovation, they were quietly gutting their workforce, downsizing departments, and targeting high-profile actors for replacement. This wasn't a one-off decision. It fit perfectly into the company's broader financial survival plan, one that's already alienated A-list talent across the Marvel brand. Some actors walked away completely. Others threatened lawsuits. And now, one of the MCU's most loyal veterans, Hugh Jackman himself, was about to discover that his grand comeback wasn't the triumphant homecoming he thought it was, but a setup for the biggest recast in superhero history. For Hugh Jackman, Wolverine wasn't just another role, it was a way of life. From the moment he first stepped into the character's boots in the year 2000, he poured everything into it, physically, mentally, and emotionally. This was a man who endured grueling, months-long transformations, consuming 6,000 calories a day of chicken, tilapia, and beans. Not because it was fun, but because the fans deserved nothing less than his best. He lived on strict diets, pushed his body to the edge, and for nearly 2 decades became the face of a hero millions grew up with. When he decided to hang up the claws after Logan in 2017, it was meant to be the perfect ending. A raw, emotional farewell that honored both the character and the fans. And for a while, that was the plan. But then Jackman saw Deadpool and everything changed. He realized there was one story left worth telling. The long-awaited Wolverine and Deadpool team-up that fans had been begging for. This wasn't about money, career advancement, or studio politics. It was about giving people something unforgettable, something they'd been dreaming about for years. So when he returned, it wasn't under pressure from the studio. It was his choice, his passion, his way of giving back to the audience that had supported him from the very beginning. He even described the moment he made the decision, pulling his car over, calling Ryan Reynolds, and excitedly saying, "I want to do it. I really want to do it." But while Hugh was busy training, filming, and promoting the movie with genuine joy, Disney executives were allegedly planning something else entirely. Instead of seeing his return as a celebration, they saw it as a marketing opportunity, a final cash-in before replacing him with a younger, cheaper version. No warning, no respectful conversation, just quiet plans to erase 2 decades of blood, sweat, and history in favor of trimming the budget. For someone who came back purely for the love of the role, the realization must have hit like a punch to the gut. This wasn't the end of his story on his terms. It was corporate calculus, and to Hugh Jackman, it felt like betrayal of the highest order. What happened to Hugh Jackman wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern. Over the last few years, Disney has been quietly earning a reputation for squeezing even its most loyal stars. And no case makes that clearer than Jeremy Renner's. Renner nearly lost his life in a horrific snowplow accident in 2023, breaking more than 30 bones, puncturing a lung, and even dislodging an eye. Against all odds, he fought his way back, determined to work again. By 2025, he was ready to return to his role as Hawkeye, a character he had helped build from the ground up in the MCU. But when Disney came knocking, their offer was an insult. Half the pay for double the work. Renner didn't hold back. In interviews, he said flat out this wasn't coming from Marvel's creative team. It was from Disney's penny-pinching accountants who saw him as a number on a spreadsheet. His response? "Why did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over?" The raw frustration in his voice struck a nerve with fans, many of whom saw the offer as not just cheap, but disrespectful. And Renner isn't alone. Across Marvel, veteran actors have faced pay cuts, lowball offers, or outright replacement. These aren't just business negotiations, they're breaking points. Disney's pattern is clear. When an actor's salary climbs too high, the accountants step in not to protect the creative vision, but to protect the bottom line. Hugh Jackman's situation takes this pattern to a whole new level. While Disney was quietly plotting to recast him, they were also using his return as the centerpiece of their marketing strategy. His face was on posters, in trailers, in every headline. The living proof that the X-Men were finally coming home to the MCU. Fans flocked to see him, not knowing that behind the scenes, executives were already preparing to replace him with someone younger and far cheaper. Officially, the studio's line was that this was narrative evolution. The story was moving on, and they wanted to stay true to the comics. But the math tells a different story. Hugh Jackman commands a salary in the tens of millions. A fresh-faced newcomer, a few $100,000, if that. Multiply that by an entire cast of mutants. And Disney isn't just rebooting a franchise, they're slashing the budget with surgical precision. It's a cynical kind of double-dipping. Squeeze every ounce of promotional value out of a beloved actor's return, then toss them aside the moment the marketing push is over. And in Jackman's case, it wasn't just a cold business move. It was personal. For someone who came back out of love for the role, not a paycheck, being used as a tool in a corporate cost-cutting plan is the ultimate insult. Disney didn't just wake up one morning and decide to replace Hugh Jackman. This was part of a larger, carefully calculated play, one that's been quietly unfolding for years. Publicly, Marvel boss Kevin Feige insists the X-Men reboot is a reset, not a reboot. But when every major role is being swapped out, that distinction is nothing more than PR dressing. The truth is, Disney has been using this so-called reset as cover for something else, restructuring their talent contracts from the ground up. Instead of letting the older cast serve as mentors to a younger generation, as the comics often did, Disney's going for a full wipe. That means no Professor X, no Magneto, no legacy Wolverine. Just a lineup of fresh, inexpensive faces. And why? Because replacing one A-list actor can save millions. Replacing an entire ensemble? That's tens of millions in savings before a single frame is shot. It's not just Marvel. Across Disney's empire, from Star Wars to Pixar, the same cost-cutting measures are taking place. Mass layoffs, smaller production budgets, reduced salaries for returning stars, all while ticket prices, streaming fees, and merchandise costs go up for fans. Disney executives aren't hiding their financial priorities anymore. They're betting they can still sell the magic while quietly dismantling the relationships and trust that made that magic possible. If Hugh Jackman's case was shocking, it's only because it became public. Behind closed doors, other Marvel veterans are facing similar ultimatums. Take Ryan Reynolds, for example. Rumors suggest that even he, one of Disney's most bankable Marvel stars, has considered walking away from the MCU after disputes over pay cuts. And if Disney is willing to risk losing Reynolds, what does that say about their attitude toward loyalty? Then, there's the original Avengers cast. Reports claim some of them have even explored legal action, with whispers of a $100 million lawsuit over payout disputes. These are the very actors who helped transform Marvel from a niche comic brand into the biggest box office force in the world. And yet, they're being treated as if their contributions were disposable. The list doesn't stop there. Hugo Weaving refused to return as Red Skull over a pay disagreement. John Malkovich turned down a role after a lowball offer. Even newcomers are starting to notice the shift, with fresh talent realizing that once they hit a certain salary threshold, they might be next on the chopping block. Put all of this together, and a picture emerges. Disney isn't just replacing actors, they're rewriting the unwritten contract between studio and star. No matter how much you've given, no matter how much the fans love you, you're only as valuable as your latest profit margin. And in the new Disney playbook, loyalty doesn't make the balance sheet. When Bob Iger returned as Disney's CEO in late 2022, fans and industry insiders saw it as a rescue mission. Under his first tenure, Disney had acquired Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Pixar, turning the company into an entertainment juggernaut. His comeback was supposed to be a return to that golden age. But this second run has been anything but golden. Almost immediately, cracks began to show. During the Writers Guild and Screen Actors Guild strikes in 2023, Iger publicly dismissed the demands of writers and actors as not realistic, comments that landed like a slap in the face, especially given his own $40 million plus annual compensation. To the very people who bring Disney's stories to life, it felt like a confirmation of what they'd feared. Profits first, people second, the hits kept coming. Ticket prices at Disney parks hit record highs, making a basic family trip cost thousands more than it did just a few years ago. The much-hyped Star Wars hotel shut down after failing to deliver on its premium price tag. High-profile projects fizzled. And then there was the politically charged battle with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over the Don't Say Gay bill, a public feud that became a PR nightmare and left Disney looking distracted and divided. Layer all of that on top of the growing unrest among Marvel actors, and Iger's image as the steady, talent-friendly CEO has been badly tarnished. What was supposed to be a legacy-defining encore is instead turning into a slow erosion of trust, both inside the company and among the audience. Out of all the controversies swirling around Disney, the decision to replace Hugh Jackman could be the one that truly breaks the dam. This isn't just another casting change. For fans, Jackman is Wolverine, the man who defined the role for 2 decades, the anchor of the X-Men films, the bridge between the Fox era and the MCU. Pulling the rug out from under him, especially after luring him back for what was marketed as his triumphant return, sends a chilling message to everyone in Hollywood. If it can happen to Hugh, it can happen to anyone. It tells actors that no matter how much you've given, how much you've sacrificed, or how much you've shaped a character, your job security ends the moment you become too expensive. And this isn't just about the talent. It's about the audience. Fans who have been emotionally invested in Jackman's Wolverine for years are being told to simply accept a younger, cheaper version as if nothing has changed. That's not just risky, it's dismissive. Audiences notice when loyalty isn't reciprocated. They notice when the actors they grew up watching are quietly written out, not for story reasons, but for budget math. If Disney thought this move would slide under the radar, they've miscalculated. Hugh Jackman's exit could be the rallying point for a broader backlash, one that forces both fans and other actors to start pushing back against the studio's new profit-first approach. The most frustrating part? This didn't have to happen this way. Disney had options, smarter, more respectful ones. They could have kept Hugh Jackman in the MCU as a mentor figure, allowing him to pass the torch on screen to a younger Wolverine. Fans would have embraced it. The transition could have felt earned, organic, even emotional. Instead, the studio chose the nuclear option: wipe the slate clean, recast everyone, and pretend the last 20 years of history never happened. That's not just risky for the brand, it's borderline self-destructive. By chasing short-term savings, Disney risks long-term damage that can't be fixed with a few flashy trailers. Actor loyalty erodes, director trust disappears, and fans, the lifeblood of the MCU, start tuning out, realizing the studio they once saw as magical now treats its icons as disposable assets. The X-Men reboot was supposed to be a crown jewel in Marvel's future. But if this is how Disney handles the people who built that legacy, it might just become the symbol of an era where corporate greed finally outweighed creative respect. And in Hollywood, that's a cost no spreadsheet can measure. Hugh Jackman's rumored departure isn't just about one actor stepping away from a role. It's a symptom of something deeper, a culture shift inside Disney where loyalty, legacy, and creative vision are weighed against a balance sheet. And too often, the balance sheet wins. The X-Men reboot should have been a unifying moment, a way to honor the past while building the future. Instead, it's become a case study in how corporate strategy can fracture trust, alienate fans, and demoralize the very people who built your brand. For years, Disney was the gold standard for how a studio could treat its stars. Now, it's facing a talent exodus, public backlash, and a growing reputation for valuing profits over people. The irony is, the short-term savings Disney is chasing may end up costing them far more in the long run. You can replace a face on a poster, but you can't replace the history, emotional connection, and goodwill that come with it. And once you lose that, no amount of marketing magic can bring it back. The question now isn't just what happens to Hugh Jackman or the X-Men, it's whether Disney can pull itself back from this corporate cliff before the brand's magic and the loyalty it once commanded disappears for good. So what do you think? Is this just the business side of Hollywood doing what it always does? Or has Disney crossed a line it can't uncross?